Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and looked out at the endless stars. The ship moved slowly through space near the edge of human territory. For 15 years now, humans had been part of the Galactic Council. But they were still treated like children who needed watching. The older alien races made the rules, and humans had to follow them. Lisa Carter, the chief science officer, walked over to Jake with a worried look on her face. She held a data pad in her hands and kept checking the numbers on it. Something was bothering her, and Jake could tell she had found something important. "Captain, you need to see this," Lisa said. She showed him the screen with strange energy, readings. "These signals are coming from the Corvani Nebula. I have never seen anything like them before." Jake looked at the data. The energy patterns were unlike anything in their databases. They seemed too organized to be natural, too powerful to come from any known technology. The reading suggested something was hidden inside the nebula, something that had been there for a very long time. "That area is forbidden by council law," Jake said. "No ship is allowed to enter that nebula. The council has made that very clear." "I know, sir, but these readings are incredible. This could be the discovery of a lifetime. Whatever is in there, it is far more advanced than anything we have ever seen." Jake thought about it. For 15 years, humans had been limited to a small part of space. They could not explore beyond certain boundaries. They could not develop certain technologies. The council watched everything humans did and stopped them when they went too far. The older races said it was for the good of the galaxy, but it felt more like a cage. The other bridge officers were listening now. Lieutenant Ben Rogers at the navigation station turned around. "Sir, if we stay at the edge of the nebula, we might be able to get better readings without actually entering forbidden space." "That is still too close," said Commander Amy Walsh, the first officer. "The Council has ships that patrol this area. If they catch us even near the nebula, there will be serious consequences." Jake walked to the main viewing screen. The Corvani Nebula stretched across space like a wall of purple and blue gas. It was beautiful, but the Council had declared it off-limits 300 years ago. They said it was dangerous, that ancient weapons were hidden inside that could destroy entire star systems. But what if that was not the whole truth? "Captain," Lisa said, "I am detecting artificial structures inside the nebula. The energy signatures are too regular to be natural formations. Someone built something in there, something massive." The bridge became quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. If there were artificial structures in the Forbidden Zone, then the Council had been hiding something important. The question was why. Jake had always been curious, even as a child. It was what made him a good explorer and a good captain. But curiosity had also gotten him in trouble with the Council before. They did not like humans who asked too many questions or looked too closely at things they were supposed to ignore. "Sir, we have incoming communication from Earth Command," said Lieutenant Sarah Brown at the communication station. "Admiral Hayes wants a status report." "Tell the Admiral we are conducting routine patrol duties," Jake said. "Nothing unusual to report." Amy gave him a sharp look. "Captain, are you thinking about entering that nebula?" "I am thinking about a lot of things," Jake replied. "Lisa, how long would it take to do a quick scan of those structures?" "Maybe an hour, sir. We could go in, take readings, and get out before anyone notices." "The Council will notice," Amy said. "They always notice when humans step out of line." Jake knew she was right. The Council had ways of watching everything. They had listening posts throughout the galaxy and spy networks that reported on the activities of younger races. Humans were watched more closely than most because the Council considered them unpredictable and dangerous. But the energy readings were too important to ignore. If there really were ancient structures in the nebula, they might hold answers to questions humans had been asking for years. Why were they limited to such a small part of space? Why were certain technologies forbidden? Why did the Council seem so afraid of human development? "Set course for the nebula," Jake said finally. "We are going to take a look." "Sir, I must protest," Amy said. "This could end your career and put the entire crew in danger." "Noted," Jake replied. "But sometimes you have to take risks to find the truth." The ship turned toward the Corvani Nebula. As they got closer, the energy readings became stronger. Lisa worked at her station, trying to make sense of the data. Whatever was inside the nebula was definitely artificial and definitely old. "We are entering the nebula now," Ben reported from navigation. "Visibility is dropping, but sensors are working fine." The ship moved deeper into the purple and blue gas clouds. The energy readings grew stronger with each passing minute. Lisa was practically dancing with excitement as new data flowed across her screens. "Captain, you have to see this," she said. "The structure is enormous. It is at least 50 kilometers long and appears to be some kind of communication array. But the technology is far beyond anything we have ever seen." "How old is it?" Jake asked. "Based on these readings, at least 10,000 years, maybe older. This was built by a race that was far more advanced than any current council species." The ship moved closer to the ancient structure. It was dark and silent, but clearly artificial. The design was unlike anything in council databases. Smooth curves and organic shapes suggested a completely different approach to engineering and technology. "Sir, I am detecting something else," Ben said. "There are other structures scattered throughout the nebula. This is not just one building, it is an entire complex." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The council had declared this area forbidden and claimed it was empty except for dangerous weapons. But instead, they had found evidence of an advanced civilization that predated all known galactic history. "Take detailed scans of everything," Jake ordered. "I want complete records of what we find here." As the crew worked, Jake wondered what the council was hiding and why they were so afraid of humans discovering the truth. The answers to those questions would change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. The UES Defiance returned to human space 3 days after the discovery in the Corvani Nebula. Captain Jake Morrison had ordered his crew to keep quiet about what they found, but word was already spreading through the ship. The ancient structures they discovered were unlike anything in known galactic history, and everyone who saw the data knew they had found something that would change everything. Ambassador Helen Brooks was waiting for Jake when he arrived at Earth, Station Alpha. She was the Council's official representative to humanity, a woman who had spent 20 years trying to keep peace between humans and the older alien races. Her face was serious as she led Jake to a private meeting room. "Captain Morrison, we need to talk," Helen said as soon as the door closed. "The Council knows about your unauthorized entry into the Corvani Nebula." "How do they know?" Jake asked, though he already suspected the answer. "They monitor everything, Captain. Every ship movement, every communication, every scan. Did you really think you could enter forbidden space without them noticing?" Helen sat down across from Jake and pulled out a secure data pad. "The Council is very unhappy about this. They want all records of your discovery classified at the highest level. No one outside your crew can ever know what you found. And if I refuse, then you will be relieved of command and your crew will face serious consequences. The Council does not make idle threats, Captain. They have ways of dealing with species that do not follow their rules." Jake thought about the ancient structures in the nebula. The technology was far more advanced than anything the Council races currently possessed. If that civilization had been so advanced, what happened to them? Why were there no records of them in Council databases? What are they afraid of? Jake asked. What is really in that nebula? Helen looked uncomfortable. "Some knowledge is too dangerous to share, Captain. The Council has maintained peace in the galaxy for thousands of years by keeping certain things hidden. You need to trust their judgment." But Jake could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. The energy signatures they detected suggested the ancient structures were connected to the faster-than-light communication networks that linked the entire galaxy. If that was true, then the Council had been using technology they did not fully understand, technology that belonged to a race that no longer existed. Meanwhile, on Mars, Dr. Richard Stone was having his own doubts about official galactic history. The xenoarchaeologist had spent years studying alien artifacts and had always noticed gaps in the historical record. Certain periods had no artifacts, no records, no evidence that anything significant happened. It was as if entire civilizations had simply vanished without a trace. When Jake's discovery reached him through unofficial channels, Richard began connecting pieces of a much larger puzzle. He contacted colleagues on other human worlds and shared his theories. If advanced civilizations had existed before the current Council races, What happened to them? Admiral Patricia Hayes, commander of the human fleet, was also asking difficult questions. She had noticed patterns in council behavior that suggested they were actively limiting human technological development. Research projects were canceled for vague safety reasons. Promising scientists were offered positions far from Earth that took them away from their work. Military technologies were declared too dangerous for humans to develop. "They are keeping us weak," Patricia told President Charles Adams during a private meeting. "Every time we make a breakthrough, the Council finds a reason to stop us from developing it further." Charles was a careful politician who had worked hard to maintain good relations with the Council, but the evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. "What do you recommend, Admiral?" "We need to decide whether we are going to remain junior partners forever or start demanding answers. Jake Morrison found something in that nebula that the Council desperately wants to keep secret. Maybe it is time we found out why." The decision became urgent when 3 human colonies reported mysterious equipment failures in their defense systems. The failures all happened at the same time and followed the same pattern. It was too coordinated to be coincidental. Colonel Mike Chen, security chief for the Mars colony, was the first to realize what was happening. "Someone is sabotaging our defenses," he reported to Admiral Hayes. "The failures are too precise, too well-timed. This is not equipment malfunction. This is deliberate action." Similar reports came from the Jupiter mining stations and the Alpha Centauri research facility. All reported the same type of system failures, all happening within hours of each other. Someone with detailed knowledge of human technology was systematically weakening their defenses. Helen Brooks tried to convince the human leadership that the equipment failures were just coincidence. "These are complex systems," she argued. "Sometimes, multiple failures happen at the same time. There is no need to assume hostile action," but the evidence was too clear. Dr. Stone had documented similar patterns in the historical record, periods when promising civilizations suddenly experienced widespread technical failures before disappearing entirely. The Council had used these tactics before. President Adams called an emergency meeting with his top advisors. "They are not waiting for us to comply with their demands," he said. "They are already taking action against us." "Then we need to make a choice," Admiral Hayes replied. "Do we submit to memory modification and pretend none of this ever happened, or do we stand up for the truth?" The debate split the human government. Some officials argued that cooperation with the Council was humanity's only hope for survival. Others believed that backing down now would only make humans more vulnerable in the future. Jake Morrison attended the meeting via secure communication link. "I have been thinking about what we found in that nebula," he said. "The technology there is connected to the Galactic communication network. If we could study it, we might learn how the whole system really works." "The Council will never allow that," Helen said. "They consider that technology too dangerous for younger races to understand." "Maybe that is exactly why we need to understand it," Jake replied. "Maybe the Council is not protecting us from dangerous technology. Maybe they are protecting dangerous technology from us." The meeting ended without a clear decision, but events were already moving beyond anyone's control. Jake's crew had shared their discovery with other human ships. Dr. Stone's research was spreading through academic networks. Admiral Hayes was quietly preparing the human fleet for possible conflict. The Council's ultimatum arrived the next day. All humans involved in the Corvani Nebula incident would submit to memory modification within 72 hours, or humanity would face immediate suspension from the Council and complete economic isolation. President Adams looked at the message and realized that the time for compromise had passed. The Council was demanding that humans give up their right to know the truth about their own galaxy. That was a price too high to pay, no matter what the consequences might be. "Send a reply," he told his communications officer. "Tell the Council that humanity declines their generous offer." President Charles Adams stood before the cameras in the White House press room and made a statement that would shock the entire galaxy. Behind him stood Admiral Patricia Hayes and Dr. Richard Stone, both looking determined despite the gravity of what they were about to announce. "Today humanity takes a stand for truth and freedom," Charles began. "We reject the Galactic Council's demand that we submit to memory modification and forget what we have discovered. We will not allow anyone to erase our knowledge or limit our right to explore and learn." The announcement spread across human space within hours. Every colony, every station, every ship received the message that humanity was officially defying the Council's ultimatum. For the first time since joining galactic civilization, humans were saying no to the ancient powers that controlled the galaxy. Council Speaker Vextar Xylon responded swiftly from the Council chambers on Nexus Prime. The tall, crystalline being's voice carried across the galaxy with cold authority. "Humanity has chosen the path of defiance and chaos. Effective immediately, all human vessels are forbidden from entering Council space. All trade agreements are suspended. All scientific exchanges are terminated. The economic sanctions hit human space hard. Supply shipments stopped arriving at outer colonies. Research facilities lost access to alien technologies they depended on. Trade routes that had provided prosperity for 15 years were suddenly closed. But instead of forcing humans to surrender, the sanctions only made them more determined to find their own path. Admiral Hayes had been preparing for this moment. All human fleet units, assume defensive positions around our worlds, she ordered. Any attempt to enforce Council demands through force will be met with appropriate response. The human fleet was small compared to the combined forces of the Council, but it was modern and well-trained. More importantly, human ships were designed with different principles than Council vessels. Where alien ships relied on proven technologies that had not changed in centuries, human ships incorporated new ideas and experimental systems that made them unpredictable in combat. Captain Jake Morrison took command of a small squadron tasked with protecting the outer colonies. His crew had become heroes to many humans after their discovery in the Corvani Nebula. Other captains looked to him for leadership as tensions continued to rise. "They want us to back down," Jake told his officers during a briefing. "They think economic pressure and threats will make us give up. But they do not understand humans very well if they think that will work." The Council's mistake became clear when other alien species began asking questions. The amphibious Cathari had always been curious about the gaps in galactic history that Dr. Stone had identified. When they learned about humanity's discovery, they began conducting their own investigations into their past. Commander Alex Turner led a secret human research team that had been studying Council databases for months. Using advanced computer programs, they had been searching for hidden or deleted information. What they found was disturbing evidence that the Council had systematically erased records of multiple civilizations over the past 1,000 years. "Look at this pattern," Alex showed Dr. Stone during a secure communication. "Every few centuries, promising species suddenly disappear from the historical record. Their territories are marked as dangerous or uninhabitable. Their technologies are declared too risky for others to study." "How many species?" Dr. Stone asked. "At least 4 that we can identify, possibly more. Each one was developing faster than light technology or advanced artificial intelligence. Each one was becoming powerful enough to challenge Council authority." The fee. Evidence suggested a terrible truth. The Council maintained power not by being the most advanced or wise, but by preventing other species from becoming advanced enough to threaten them. They were not protectors of galactic peace. They were guardians of their own supremacy. When this information began spreading through human networks, it reached other alien species as well. The insectoid Thrix had always wondered why their early space exploration had been so limited by Council regulations. Young Cathari scientists began questioning why their ancestors' most advanced research had been classified as forbidden knowledge. The Council tried to suppress these questions, but it was too late. The galaxy's communication networks were designed to share information freely, and humans had learned how to use them effectively. Every attempt to silence the growing movement only convinced more species that the Council had something to hide. The crisis reached a breaking point when Council forces moved to establish a blockade around human space. A fleet of massive alien warships took positions at every major jump point leading to human territory. The message was clear: Submit to Council authority or face complete isolation. Admiral Hayes called an emergency meeting with all human fleet commanders. They think they can starve us into submission, she said. They believe that cutting us off from the rest of the galaxy will force us to accept their terms. What are our options? Asked Captain Morrison via communication link from his patrol sector. We fight, we surrender, or we find a third option, Patricia replied. I prefer the third choice. The third option came from an unexpected source. Lisa Carter, the science officer who had first detected the energy signatures in the Corvani Nebula, had been studying the ancient technology they discovered. Working with human engineers, she had developed a way to modify their faster-than-light communication systems. The Council controls galactic communications through a network of relay stations, Lisa explained to a gathering of human leaders. But the original technology came from that ancient civilization we found. If we can reverse engineer their systems, we might be able to bypass Council control entirely. It was a dangerous gamble. Attempting to modify fundamental galactic infrastructure could have unpredictable consequences. But it also offered humanity a way to break free from Council control without resorting to open warfare. President Adams made the decision that would define humanity's future in the galaxy. Do it, he said. If the Council wants to cut us off from the galaxy, we will build our own connections. The work began immediately. Human engineers and scientists worked around the clock to modify communication arrays based on the ancient technology. The project was risky and complex, but it offered hope that humanity could maintain contact with sympathetic alien species even under Council blockade. Meanwhile, the political situation continued to deteriorate. Council forces were reporting increasing resistance from their own younger members. The Ketheri delegation walked out of a council session in protest. 3 Thrix colonies declared their support for human independence. Even some members of the ancient Zeltani collective began questioning their leaders' actions. The galaxy was fracturing along lines that had been hidden for centuries. Species that had accepted Council authority without question were suddenly demanding answers about their own suppressed histories. The careful balance of power that had maintained stability for thousands of years was crumbling. Ambassador Helen Brooks made one final attempt to negotiate a peaceful solution. It is not too late to step back from this path, she told President Cho. Adams. The Council is prepared to offer humans expanded territory and greater autonomy in exchange for accepting memory modification of the Corvani incident. We are past the point of no return, Charles replied. Humanity will not trade truth for comfort. If the Council cannot accept that, then we will find our own way forward. The die was cast. Humanity had chosen defiance over submission, truth over comfort, freedom over security. The consequences of that choice would reshape the entire galaxy. The Council blockade of human space had been in effect for 2 weeks when Captain Jake Morrison received orders that would change the course of galactic history. Admiral Patricia Hayes had assembled a small fleet of the most advanced human ships for a mission that seemed impossible: broadcast the truth about the ancient civilization to every inhabited world in the galaxy simultaneously. The modified communication system is ready, Lisa Carter reported from the UES Defiance. We have successfully reverse-engineered the ancient technology found in the Corvani Nebula. If this works, we can bypass every Council communication control in the galaxy. Jake looked at the small fleet assembled around his ship. 12 vessels, against the might of the entire Galactic Council. It should have been suicide, but human ingenuity had found a way to make the impossible seem achievable. Dr. Richard Stone had prepared the broadcast message with careful documentation of everything they had discovered. The evidence was overwhelming. Records of at least 4 advanced civilizations that had been systematically destroyed by the Council over the past millennium. Each species had been eliminated when they became advanced enough to threaten Council supremacy. The key is timing, explained Commander Alex Turner, who would coordinate the technical aspects of the mission. We need to reach the transmission point and begin broadcasting before the Council can react. Once the signal starts, it will spread faster than they can stop it. The transmission point was located in neutral space between Council and human territory. It was the perfect location to access the Galactic communication network, but it was also heavily monitored by Council forces. Getting there would require careful planning and flawless execution. General Susan Clark had developed the tactical plan that would get them past the blockade. Instead of fighting their way through Council forces, human ships would use their superior speed and maneuverability to simply outrun their opponents. Council ships are powerful but slow, Susan explained to the mission commanders. They rely on overwhelming firepower and heavy armor. Our ships are built for speed and agility. We use those advantages to stay ahead of them until we reach the transmission point. The mission began at dawn, Earth time. Jake's small fleet accelerated, away from human space toward the neutral zone. Within hours, Council forces detected their movement and began pursuit. Massive alien warships that had been maintaining the blockade turned to intercept the human vessels. The chase became a test of human innovation against alien power. Council ships fired long-range weapons that could destroy a human vessel with a single hit, but the human ships were too fast and too unpredictable to target effectively. They weaved through space in patterns that confused alien targeting systems designed for more conventional opponents. "They are trying to surround us," reported Lieutenant Ben Rogers from the navigation station. "Council reinforcements are moving to cut off our escape routes." "Let them try," Jake replied. "Take us through the asteroid field in Sector 7. Their big ships will not be able to follow us there." The human fleet dove into a dense field of rocky debris that would have been impassable for larger vessels. Council ships were forced to go around, giving the humans precious time to reach their destination. It was exactly the kind of unconventional thinking that made human tactics so effective. At the transmission point, Lisa and Alex worked frantically to establish connection with the Galactic communication network. The ancient technology was more complex than anything they had worked with before, but human determination was making up for lack of experience. "Connection established," Alex announced. "We are linked to every communication relay in the galaxy. Beginning transmission now." Dr. Stone's voice began broadcasting across the galaxy, reaching every inhabited world simultaneously. The message was clear and supported by undeniable evidence. The Galactic Council had built their power on the graves of civilizations they had destroyed to maintain control. "Citizens of the galaxy," Richard's voice carried to billions of beings on thousands of worlds. "You have been lied to about your history. The Council has systematically eliminated any species that developed technology or ideas that threatened their authority. The evidence we present today proves that galactic civilization has been built on murder and deception." The reaction was immediate and explosive. On Cathari homeworld, massive protests erupted as citizens demanded answers about their suppressed history. The Thrix colonies declared independence from Council authority. Even among the ancient Zelthani collective, younger members began rebelling against their elders. Council forces finally reached the transmission point, but it was too late. The message was already spreading through the Galactic network faster than they could stop it. Desperate to end the broadcast, they opened fire on the human ships. The battle was brief but decisive. Council ships had superior firepower, but human vessels had been designed with the latest defensive technology. Energy shields that adapted to incoming fire, armor that redistributed impact across the entire hull, and engines that could change direction faster than alien gunners could track. Jake's ship took several hits but continued broadcasting. "All human vessels maintain defensive positions around the transmission array. We need to keep this signal active as long as possible." The most shocking moment came when 3 Zelthani ships suddenly broke formation and began attacking their own Council forces. The rebellion that had started with human defiance was spreading to the founding members of the Council itself. "This is impossible," came a transmission from the Council fleet commander. "The Zelthani have been loyal to the Council for 3,000 years. Maybe they finally learned the truth about what the Council really represents," Jake replied over the open channel. As the battle continued, reports poured in from across the galaxy. The broadcast had reached every corner of civilized space, and the reaction was beyond anything humans had hoped for. Species that had accepted Council authority for centuries were suddenly questioning everything they had been told. The Cathari ambassador to the council publicly resigned and called for war crimes tribunals. The Thrix military declared that they would no longer take orders from council command. Even some council species began demanding investigations into their own past actions. Admiral Hayes watched the reports from Earth Command and realized that humanity had achieved something remarkable. They had not just saved themselves from council oppression, they had triggered a galaxy-wide revolution that would reshape civilization itself. "The old order is finished," she told President Adams. "The council may still have military power, but they have lost all political legitimacy. No one will trust them to govern after this." The broadcast continued for 6 hours before council forces finally managed to disable the transmission array. But by then, the damage was done. The truth had spread to every corner of the galaxy, and there was no way to put it back in the bottle. As Jake's battered fleet returned to human space, they received messages of support from dozens of species. The galaxy was choosing sides, and most were choosing freedom over the false security the council had offered. The council itself was fracturing under the weight of revealed crimes and internal rebellion. Ancient alliances were breaking apart, as species that had worked together for millennia turned against each other. The political structure that had governed the galaxy for thousands of years was collapsing. Humanity had achieved the impossible. A species that had been junior members of galactic civilization for only 15 years had brought down the most powerful government in the galaxy's history. They had done it not through superior force, but through courage, determination, and an unwavering commitment to truth. The galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the galaxy-wide broadcast that exposed the council's crimes, President Charles Adams stood in what had once been the council chambers on Nexus Prime. The great hall that had housed the most powerful government in galactic history was now the site of an unprecedented gathering. Representatives from over 50 species had come together to build something entirely new. The old Galactic Council had collapsed completely. The revelation of their systematic elimination of advanced civilizations had triggered rebellions across the galaxy. Ancient species that had formed the Council's core were fighting civil wars as younger members turned against the elders, who had hidden the truth for millennia. The Zelthani Collective had split into 3 separate factions. The traditional faction still claimed that their actions had been necessary for galactic stability, but they were increasingly isolated. The Reform faction wanted to build a new government based on democratic principles. The Radical faction believed that all former council species should be banned from positions of authority. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, oversaw the dismantling of the council's military infrastructure. Instead of seizing the powerful weapons and ships for human use, the new alliance was converting them into peacekeeping forces that could never again be used to oppress developing civilizations. The mistake the council made was concentrating too much power in too few hands, Jake explained to a gathering of military leaders from dozens of species. "We are going to spread authority across multiple independent commands, so no single group can dominate the others." Dr. Richard Stone had become the galaxy's leading expert on suppressed history. His research teams were working with former council archives to reconstruct the true story of galactic civilization. What they were discovering was even worse than anyone had imagined. "We have found evidence of at least 12 civilizations that were destroyed by the Council over the past 5,000 years, Richard reported to the Constitutional Convention. Each one was eliminated when they developed technology or social systems that threatened Council control. The pattern goes back to the very beginning of their rule. The scope of the Council's crimes was staggering. Entire species had been wiped out or reduced to primitive states to prevent them from challenging the established order. Technologies that could have benefited everyone had been suppressed or destroyed. Scientific progress had been deliberately limited to maintain the status quo. Ambassador Helen Brooks, who had tried so hard to maintain peace between humans and the Council, now worked to help build something better. She had been horrified to learn the full extent of what the Council had done, and she was determined to ensure that such crimes could never happen again. "We need constitutional protections that guarantee the right of all species to develop their full potential," Helen argued during the convention debates. No government should have the power to limit scientific research or technological development for political reasons. The new Galactic Federation that emerged from these discussions was unlike anything that had existed before. Instead of being ruled by ancient species with superior technology, it was based on democratic principles that gave every member species an equal voice in governance. President Adams addressed the galaxy from the same chamber where Council Speaker Vex Tarzilon had once issued ultimatums to subordinate species. "Today we establish a new principle for galactic civilization," Charles declared. "No species will be denied the right to explore, to learn, to grow, and to reach their full potential. The age of artificial limitations is over." The new constitution included strict safeguards against the concentration of power. Military forces were divided among multiple commands that reported to different civilian authorities. Scientific research was protected from political interference. The right to explore and colonize space was guaranteed to all member species. Admiral Patricia Hayes led the first joint expedition back to the Corvani Nebula, now accompanied by representatives from dozens of species. The ancient structures that had started the whole crisis were finally being studied openly, with all discoveries shared freely among the Alliance members. "This technology is incredible," reported Dr. Lisa Carter, who had become the expedition's chief scientist. "The original builders created a communication system that could connect every inhabited world in the galaxy, but more than that, they built it with safeguards to prevent any single group from controlling the flow of information. The ancient civilization had faced the same challenges that the galaxy was confronting now: how to maintain unity and cooperation among diverse species without allowing any one group to dominate the others. Their solution had been to build systems that required cooperation to function properly. General Susan Clark worked with alien military leaders to establish new peacekeeping protocols. The goal was to maintain order without giving any single force the power to oppress others. It required constant negotiation and compromise, but it was far preferable to the tyranny that had existed before. The transition was not without difficulties. Some former council species refused to accept the new order and attempted to maintain their own separate governments. Pirates and raiders took advantage of the temporary instability to attack vulnerable worlds. Economic systems that had operated for centuries had to be completely rebuilt. But humanity's example had inspired other species to overcome these challenges. The same courage and determination that had led humans to defy the Council was now being displayed by beings across the galaxy. Democracy was messy and difficult, but it was also inspiring in ways that authoritarian rule could never be. Commander Alex Turner established the new Galactic Intelligence Service, which was tasked with preventing the kind of systematic oppression that the Council had practiced. Unlike the Council's secret police, this organization was transparent in its operations and accountable to democratically elected oversight committees. "Our job is to watch the watchers," Alex explained to his staff. "We exist to ensure that no government, including our own, ever again has the power to eliminate species that become inconvenient to those in authority." The economic reconstruction was led by human economists working with alien specialists who had been suppressed under the old system. Free trade replaced the controlled markets that had benefited only council species. Scientific exchange accelerated technological development across the galaxy. Art and culture flourished as species were free to express ideas that had been forbidden under council rule. The most moving moment came when representatives of the extinct civilizations were honored in a galaxy-wide memorial service. Dr. Stone had reconstructed enough information to tell their stories, ensuring that their sacrifices would not be forgotten. The memorial served as a reminder of the price of allowing power to become concentrated in too few hands. 5 years after the revolution began, Jake Morrison returned to Earth for the first time since his discovery in the Corvani Nebula. He found a world transformed by humanity's new role in galactic affairs. Children were growing up learning about dozens of alien cultures. Scientists were working on projects that had been impossible under council restrictions. Artists were creating works inspired by the infinite diversity of galactic civilization. Jake visited a school where human children played alongside young Cathari, Thrix, and even reformed Zelthani. They were growing up in a galaxy where their potential would never be artificially limited, where they could dream of achievements that previous generations could never have imagined. Was it worth it? Asked one of his former crew members who had come to the school with him. All the risk, all the danger, all the uncertainty we went through. Jake watched the children playing together and thought about the galaxy they would inherit. It was still dangerous and difficult, still full of challenges that would require courage and wisdom to overcome. But it was also free in ways that it had never been before. Yes, he said finally, it was worth it. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most important battles are not fought with weapons but with truth, courage, and the determination to never accept that things must always be the way they have always been. Humanity had given the galaxy a gift more valuable than any technology, the knowledge that freedom is always possible for those brave enough to reach for it.